We can do an episode on sitcoms. RPG sitcoms.
somehow.
Wasn't there someone who did
There was
a
a
Frasier
RPG. Yeah,
Oh.
there is a.
I need to play that one day.
I think it was a Game Boy.
Yeah.
I think it was a Game Boy game
Someone
that
did
someone
that.
made. Yeah, which is great. I support that.
Oh, it's called Frasier Fantasy.
That's great. Hi, and welcome to the JRPG Pursuit, a podcast all about JRPGs, from collecting, general discussions, and playing. I am Emily, and I'm today joined by my co-hosts.
I'm Branden.
And I'm Abdallah.
And today we'll be talking about strategy RPGs, one of my favorite subgenres in the JRPG landscape. But before we do that, we have some upcoming events that we're all kind of excited about, or some news that we want to just talk about. And so I'm going to first kick this off to Branden to talk about one of his exciting things that he's looking forward to.
Yeah, so it was just officially announced the other day. By the time you're hearing this, who knows? It may have already happened. We're backlogging some episodes here, but I'm going to be appearing at PAX West on August 30th to do a panel along with NIS America about storytelling in JRPGs. So really looking forward to that. This is kind of a follow-up to a panel we did last month at Anime Expo about kind of just sort of a beginner's guide to JRPGs is kind of how we framed that one. So yeah, it should be a lot of fun if you are going to be at PAX in the area. I hope, let me think how to phrase this, because like I said, I think this will have already happened by the time you're hearing
Hopefully
it.
you guys connected.
I hope you all were able to have come out and see it. But yeah, it should be a lot of
Are you guys
fun.
doing a live stream at all?
It
for
will
that
be.
episode?
Oh yes, thank you for saying it will be live streamed. It will be recorded and put up on NIS YouTube page at some point.
Awesome.
So check out the live stream if you're not able to be there, or watch it later if you can. So
Really exciting. I went to the one at Anime Expo and it was a fun time. So highly recommend checking out at least the live stream if you weren't able to attend. How about you, Dala? What's been up with you?
Oh, honestly, not a whole lot, but I'm counting down the days to East 10. So we'll see where that goes. And then honestly, I almost forgot about this, but Emily was telling me earlier that Astrobot's coming out soon. And I don't know if anyone's played the buy-in. I guess it comes in like the free download on the PS5. But
oh yeah,
Astro's Playroom, so fun.
It's one of the platformers that has like the most Nintendo whimsiness, but in a Sony vein, where it has like a lot of throwbacks to Sony, just IPs and a lot of fun. And it's got like the very tight platforming. And I got a soft spot in my heart for platforming as well from my younger years. So I am all ready for that. As well as I just confirmed my dates for going to Japan, which will be at the end of September. So going to spend a nice 12 days there, taking in some game collecting and sites. So I'm sure I'll have some fun things to share with you guys later about that.
Heck yeah.
Totally. Yeah, sounds so exciting. And I guess my news, I'll jump in, as I will be in Asia very soon, actually in a couple of days from now. So I think by the time we have our next episode, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about my trip. But the lineup so far is going to Seoul, Korea, Shanghai, China for a little bit, and then spend the most of the time in Japan and kind of traveling through various areas. So I'm really excited. This will be my third time going to Japan. And before, I was only kind of locked into like that golden route, the Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka kind of route. So now I've kind of expanded towards Kyushu kind of region. So, and check out Hiroshima and Miyazaki and Yakushima Islands. So really excited.
I'm excited for you. I was talking to Emily before. I lived in Hiroshima for 5 years, so soft spot. So I'm excited to hear what's your thoughts on Hiroshima once you get back.
Yes, I'm very excited, and definitely will be probably gushing about my trip in the next episode.
That'll be the Japan special or the Asia special.
Yeah, I think that could be fun.
Yeah.
We'll have to think of a cool topic for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But for today's topic, we're talking about strategy RPGs. So anywhere between the tactical type of strategies, real-time strategy. Like, I feel like there's so much in this genre we could definitely talk about. And I thought, first of all, we should maybe go around and talk about some of our favorites that kind of represent this genre. So I'm going to start off with Branden and let us know what some of your favorites are.
Yeah, I've said before on like my YouTube channel that strategy is the genre or subgenre that has like always scared me the most. It's always felt like it was too hard for me. At least from the PlayStation era onward, I tried to play like Final Fantasy Tactics and just hit a brick wall with that. And kind of from that point forward, I was just like, I don't know, man, these might not be for me. But two things. For one, that's starting to change now that I'm broadening my horizons a little bit and playing games like Tactics Ogre, Reborn, and I'm in the middle of Phantom Brave right now, the NIS game that they ported over to the Switch. So those are great. But the games that I wanted to talk about as my favorites kind of go back to that pre 32-bit era of strategy games when they didn't feel too hard for someone like me. And those are the Shining Force games, right? Yep. So your Shining Force 2, so a couple of things about Shining Force, big, bright, colorful graphics, like very kind of an anime aesthetic before that was really a thing that you saw in video games, right? Just very colorful and exciting, especially for a younger kid to be able to have a game like that. And revolutionary in a lot of ways, like the fact that your battle sequences turned into these dramatic, face-offs between the characters, and they were like not richly animated. If you look at it, it's like 3 frames, but at the time, like your little brain is like filling in the gaps and making it just look like a movie. And it was just so cool. So many great characters. Like, this wasn't the sort of game where you had generic fighters and warriors and archers and stuff. Like, every character had a name and a personality, and they were just so much fun. I had a great time. It was one of the ways that I bonded with my brother when we were younger, because we both were just super into Shining Force. So have either of you guys played any of the Shining Force games?
I haven't, though. I've been tempted to pick up that collection on the Switch, the Sega Genesis game collection. I think they have the first 2 on there, so I probably should get that sooner rather than later, so I could experience at least the first 2 Shining Force games.
Yeah, and that was actually my first soiree into tactical RPGs at the time, outside of let's say JRPGs specifically, because more Western tactical RPGs that I would play on the PC and stuff like that were early on. But I say from that tactical point, it's like that was probably one of the first games I played was Shining Force. I didn't own it. I had a friend who owned it, and yeah, like you said, it's got like the perfect anime aesthetic. And I don't know if anyone's ever played the Dragon Force on the Saturn.
Oh my gosh,
that one has the most epic battle sequences, because you have end up with 50 characters on the screen just fighting. And to see that it had a very just creative tactical style that you didn't see often, or even to this day as much similar to that. But yeah, I love those games.
That's one of my grails, is to pick up Dragon Force. Last time I was at Midwest Gaming Classic, I found it for, it was selling for what it retails for, which is, what you expect, right, at a convention.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm going to look around and see if I can find it for a little bit less. I'm going to try to get the best deal.
Yeah.
And so I found a few more copies as I went around the vendor hall, and they were all about the same price. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to get it, because otherwise, what am I going to get it?
Yeah.
Well, by the time I made that decision, I went around, all of them had sold. All of them. There were 4 or 5 copies. All of them were sold. So I was like,
those Skrill games, they go by quickly promoted for these conventions.
So alas, next year, I guess. Next year.
Yeah. Those specific type of Saturn games get picked up pretty quickly, because they're just, everybody wants a piece.
There are not many of them.
No, there's not. Yeah.
There's not a lot in circulation, and I don't know how often they fail compared to other disc-based games.
Yeah, I did, however, console myself with Shining Force 3 on the Saturn. So I have not played this one yet, even though I was a big Shining Force fan. I was not a Saturn boy, so I never had it. So, but I am looking forward to trying it, because I have heard good things.
Yeah. You have to let me know, because I've never played Shining Force 3 as well. It's on my list of things to play. The backlog. Typical.
How many Shining Force games are there? I know there are a few that haven't been localized.
So there are 3 main Shining Force games. The third game was broken into 3
chapters,
acts, or
Actors,
3 separate games essentially, which this is just the first act. We never got the other 2 acts translated into English. But the Shining series as a whole is like really expansive. Like it started with Shining in the Darkness, which I also have on the Genesis. Then there's Shining the Holy Ark on Saturn, which I also have. Shining Wisdom, Shining Tears, Shining, I don't know. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff. I guess there is a game called Shining Force Neo on the PS2, but I don't think that's really related to.
Is that a beat 'em up?
Game.
Is that a beat 'em up?
It's like an action hack and slash kind of thing. So
how about the Shining? Is it Refrain games that they have on the PS4? Is that
Shining Resonance Refrain?
Switch?
I think that's part of the series.
Yeah, they have dragon stuff.
Dragon singers, and there's musicians, and
it's not a strategy RPG though. But
no, it's more traditional. But I do have that somewhere here.
I do too.
I do not. Let me know if it's worth buying.
Let us know down in the comments, or send us an email if you think that it's worth playing. Otherwise, it's likely to sit on my shelf until probably close to the heat death of the sun.
Yeah, I picked it up, I think, on sale on Video Games Plus, and when it still had the steel book, or they called it a steel case. It's a little bit different from a traditional steel book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a slip cover, but it's steel.
Oh, weird. Okay.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
I'll have to have you show me that sometime, because I've never I have no idea what that could be.
But Dala, do you have any other strategy RPGs that influenced your formative years, or that you discovered later on?
Yeah, luckily I did not. I was about to choose Shining Force, actually. So good thing I did not.
That's why I was like, I got to go first, because that's literally all I have to talk about.
You dabbled in Disgaea, no? Or
that's true.
I've started them.
Yeah. We'll probably get into that. You will let Branden talk about his experience with Disgaea collecting right now,
and some of the other Nippon Ichi kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think Branden touched upon the game, but I want to bring up just the basic, what people think is probably usually the number one. I have it both on the PlayStation and the PSP, but I think the
gold standard,
the PSP version is my favorite, just because of like just the extra content and just being all around awesome.
For
but
our listeners, can you tell us what the title is?
Oh yes, it's Final Fantasy Tactics, the War of the Lions, which is the PSP version, where the PlayStation 1 just had the classic version without the War of the Lions subtitle to that.
I need to get my hands on that.
It's definitely worth it. It's a wonderful game. Like, one of the things I love about it is that like it takes everything that you loved from, let's say, Final Fantasy 4 or 5 from a job system perspective, and it applied like the tactical spin to that. And it was like one of those games where you really had like elevation play a role in things, which was really fun from a tactical perspective, which you didn't really see a lot until then in the JRPG tactics scene. And then also, I got to say, like, one of the things that I think Branden touched upon it being hard is that it was a little unbalanced, which I think has caused a lot of people to have bad experiences playing tactics, where you'd come across these like almost scene, like you'd end up in like a battle where the level of difficulty just spikes up incredibly, and then you can't back out of it. So you'd have to hope that you had a save from the previous, like a previous save that you can go back to. So like, I guess like that would be like the one critique, is that like, if we were to ever see, hopefully we get that remake. I know it's been rumored for years now. After
the Nvidia leak had it in there, didn't it?
Yeah. So
it's one of the last things that in that leak, I think.
Between that and the Final Fantasy IX remake too.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's just like, they're just like moments away from probably dropping that hint. But I have to say, Final Fantasy Tactics, like the story, it's just the perfect Final Fantasy type story. We had like, it's a story of just pure, like, just downtrodden characters, unfortunately. But like, it's also gotten to the situation where like you have these villains that are like I think we touch upon it in like how Xenogears does its villains, where it's like you kind of have that feeling towards them where they're like, sure, they're doing a bad thing, but they're doing it for what they think is the right reasons.
You can understand.
Yeah, like you have empathy towards, they're like, okay, I see why you're doing this. It's bad. You shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
But like you can empathize with that character and also see them as like a person with a feeling and stuff like that. So I think it does a really good job of playing that kind of like because like the main character's best friend has going through that in the game, where they go just basically separate, like they go down two different like scenarios, where he kind of goes down the line of like what we call the quote unquote good side, where his friend goes down the quote unquote, like, let's say, the villainous side of things. And so I think like that mixed with the I think like 30, 22, I forgot how many exact jobs there are. I think there's around 22 jobs you can choose from. And not only that, but like the amount of weapons and gear in this game that you can flip around. And there's, I think, is the most, I was like reading this about this somewhere, I think the most at the time amount of gear that you can find in a game. So you can build up really cool different types of, I guess, teams and or strategies. And so it really lets you play around with the different types of strategies. It's like, it's a really fun game. It's super challenging. So like, it's a good start. It's a good starting point to get you into the zone of like, can you handle, like, if you can handle like going through tactics, you can handle anything at that point. Like you can take on any other tactical game out there. And so, yeah, I think it's like, it's definitely one of my all-time favorites. So yeah. Emily,
Cool,
how about you?
Cool. So I was introduced to the genre back on the 3DS with Fire Emblem Awakening. And I kind of was drawn to this title, not only because of all the hype it was getting at the time, but the idea of permadeath that I heard about the Fire Emblem series prior to Awakening always kind of scared me a little bit. I didn't really want to worry about my like teammates dying and them not coming back and progressing throughout further on in the story. But Fire Emblem Awakening, I think, was a great bridge for players like me who was a little uncertain about the genre and wanted to try it out. And since then, I've really come to love it. And I play on normal mode, and I've tried a lot of other kind of tactical games, but there's just something special about Fire Emblem Awakening that I kind of always think about. And I actually have a little shrine for Fire Emblem, and definitely a spot for all the 3DS games, which are still my favorite because those are the ones I've played the most so far. But that's Fire Emblem is known as, the traditional turn-based tactical strategy RPG that a lot of other games have since based theirs off of, which I think is cool. When it comes to Fire Emblem, I think what I really like about Fire Emblem compared to some of the other tactical turn-based strategy RPGs I played is the amount of care they put into the characters, and I really like their interactions on the battlefield. And also the triangle system that they developed throughout the years and kind of do a little bit of spin for each title. I think it's a lot of fun. And we even had the same triangle system reduced in some of the spin-off games like Tokyo Mirage Sessions that, I don't know, something about that just made it really an addictive kind of playing or combat system for me. And yeah, I just love it. Have you guys dabbled in Fire Emblem yet?
I have, but only really in the Switch entries. So Three Houses, Engage. I feel like I'm a rare breed where I prefer Engage over Three Houses. I don't know if that's actually okay.
It's not,
because like, and I don't not. Yeah. That's not to say that Three Houses is a bad game. I enjoyed it, but like, for some reason, the gameplay felt a little more impactful to me. Plus, I stan a main character that talks and has a personality. Not to mention, I played the little lady main character. I can't remember her name. Colgate Head. What's her name? Doesn't matter.
Colgate Head.
Alear.
Alear, yeah. And she's
I played female Alear too.
She's just a precious little chipmunk, and you just want to make sure that she's taken care of and happy. She's just the little chipmunk of our hearts.
It's a divisive title, though.
It is. I don't understand why. Maybe because people that were introduced to the series via Three Houses, and it was very different from Three Houses. It didn't have that kind of like school thing, the persona thing that everybody was doing for a while there.
I think that, and also how, I guess, Engage started off story-wise. It was rather cheesy, and I think some people kind of eat it out within the first half hour, which is unfortunate because it was a little bit with the whole kind of like they made Alear kind of this big celebrity,
Oh,
it was a little bit too much, in my opinion.
It could just be my age, but like stuff that the younger generations are like, oh, that's cringe. I'm like, I guess I don't know what you mean. Like, it seems fine. Seems fine to me.
Yeah, you just go with the flow. I feel like if something's a little bit cringy and stick it out. Because I think all the characters in Engage were really interesting. And the plot I think does have some interesting twists and turns. For the most part,
Hmm.
it may not be as comprehensive or as, I guess, unique story-wise in the Fire Emblem series as Three Houses was. Though I feel like Three Houses, I just hated going back to each route and having to replay the
Mm,
monastery stuff.
Yeah.
Dragged itself out, I think, a little bit too long for me.
Yeah, the story in Engage was, I thought it was fun. And I don't like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
say that derisively, like, oh, that's cute. You know, not like that. Just like it was fun.
yeah.
And I think it's fine for a game to just have a fun story. It's not changing my life. That's okay. Not every
hmm
game has to.
Well, no. And the
Yeah.
combat, I think, is so much better than Three Houses. Three Houses, I think they got rid of the triangle system. So it was, you could kind of overpower a few characters and kind of force the battle wins.
Mm,
But in Engage, you have to use a little bit more tactics or strategy, which I appreciate more.
yeah.
Yeah, like I think from a Fire Emblem perspective, like, and I agree, like Fire Emblem Engage for me felt like almost a spin-off game for, or like kind of like a,
It was an anniversary game.
like an
You had all
anniversary, like
the
it
Return
really,
of the Heroes.
yeah, exactly. It just kind of felt like it was like a, yeah, like exactly, like an anniversary game.
Celebratory game.
It was gonna be, and like as a JRPG lover and enthusiast, like you got to be okay with the little cringe and the little cheese
Yes.
with your, like I feel like,
Yeah, it's like, what genre do you think you're playing? Of course it's
I have a
course
little
there's
bit of thick
cringe
skin
here.
there, I think.
I mean, we love Trails, and what is there with? I mean, Trails is filled with like just positivity
I
out the
know. Friendship
wazoo. It's like
beating,
That's true.
conquering all.
even like the most evil of villains are conquered by friendship, and then they become friends. So like it's like you gotta, it comes with the territory. So you just gotta,
Power friendship.
yeah, power friendship
That's right.
trumps all. It can beat God at the end of the day. It can beat everything. Like JRPGs, that's the thing. And so like Fire Emblem Engage, I think had a really tight battle system, and I think it was like the epitome of what a Fire Emblem structured like battle system should be. And so that's why I think it like excelled, and and that's where it became like divisive. It was like, you know, those who really love the battle system, who go into Fire Emblem for its tactical battle system, love the game. For those who came into, you know, Three Houses coming in for like that Persona-esque feel of like a story, which Fire Emblem
Romancing options.
exactly, like Fire Emblem's never been like heavy, like, well,
There was romancing starting with Awakening.
yeah,
So
Awakening,
they did introduce it, but it was cranked up a bit, I would say, for Three Houses.
yeah, like it was like a lot more central to the game itself, I think, where
Yes.
a lot of the older games were, you know, the story was there to get you into a battle and get you through
some
the
campaign.
things.
Some,
Exactly.
like, why are these people fighting?
Exactly. It's got to be political. It's got to get into that. So that's the fun thing about it. And that's actually part of the thing that got me into Fire Emblem to begin with is, I mean, I didn't get into it until the 3DS era, like you, Emily, as well. Prior to that, I just never played it on the Super Nintendo. We never got the NES version. And then I never had it for the GameCube or the Wii as well. So I just never played them. And so when I got both Awakening and whatnot on the 3DS, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then also the fact that like you can have your like carry on certain traits to the children, and so you can now create these really, like, that was kind of cool. Like it was like, you know, inception of
weird,
like,
but I liked it too.
it tickles the mid max like brain sometimes if you're into a tactical game where you're just like, but I can do better, and you just like keep trying to do better and getting better situations.
Yeah, and looking up resources online. So,
Yeah.
okay, what's the best like traits to pass on?
Yeah, it almost takes on like a Pokemon brain, where like when people get into really EV training and IV training as well, like it's just like they're really like looking at those traits. How do we pass it on, and what do we do? So like it was really fun and interesting, but then it also got like to the point where like, okay, I got too far into this, so it kind of just like take over your life. But like, yeah, Fire Emblem is like one of those games that even though I didn't experience at the time, like going through like the history of like gaming, like, you know, the retro era, the era, you can still look back and still play them and enjoy them as just as much.
They're classics, I think, that do stand up still today.
Yeah.
Like I went back and played some of the GBA titles on an emulator.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed them. Even with the permadeath.
Yeah, that was always hard on me.
It was.
That was the hardest part about, and that's what I loved about being able to turn that off in the 3DS versions.
Yeah, that's great. And then you don't have to do the soft resets, which
Yeah.
I'll admit I do that myself, but
yeah, because I think that was like I hate losing anybody, so I'd always just like
I
having to
know
replay.
I
Yeah,
don't want to lose any sort of dialogue or, interaction.
exactly. And so like I'd end up like restarting constantly to fix whatever decisions I made. So yeah.
Did
Yeah.
those have the thing where there were certain characters that could not permadie because they were like storyline important?
Well, it would be game over if your main character died.
Sure that, but I'm pretty sure in Engage,
And then like Kron probably, like in
there's like characters that couldn't permadie, even if you had permadeath turned on. There are some that just couldn't.
I think some were integral to the story, like some of the big people. But
yeah, but
other ones,
your rank and file soldiers could die. And okay,
yeah, I don't think there are too many that had that restriction. I'm trying to think. I don't recall exactly who it was, but I think there were.
I was just curious.
Yeah, but we've been talking about a lot of classic kind of franchises that really started off the strategy RPG genre, but it's been interesting to see the modern take on the subgenre in JRPGs, and not just doing a lot of the turn-based kind of combat style we've been seeing in Fire Emblem, Shining Force, and Final Fantasy Tactics. And so I think now we should maybe shift to what modern ones we really enjoy outside of, the newest entries of some of these older franchises. So who wants to start off?
I can get going with that one. Okay. So one of the ones I really enjoyed this year was, or whatever year it came out, I forgot now. Time's a blur at this point. But Triangle Strategy, I thought was a really fun, coming from like my one of my favorites being Tactics. It really kind of builds on that perspective, and the battle system kind of almost reminiscence to that. Not as difficult, but definitely just as fun. And it really played with like the different elevations of the field and the strategy of like what type of characters could fight from different elevations and what they could do. And so like you could really have fun planning out strategies as you get into these sequences, and you can play a lot of different like levels over and over again. So you can really try different strategies if you wanted to. And
the environmental effects were really cool too.
Yes.
The elements.
Oh,
so fun.
Lots of fun. It is a beautiful game too. Like even on the Switch, it looked wonderful. It really, it thrived as that, the 3D, 2D like look. It really like did well for it being a tactical RPG in that same vein.
As someone who hasn't played it, what is the triangle in Triangle Strategy? I'm assuming it's not the same thing as Fire Emblem. So what is that?
This is the decision routes you make. So depending on, you're presented some sort of dilemma and you had to choose 3 different options of courses to go throughout the campaign. And they're kind of 3 different, I'm forgetting what they're called, but different ways on the scales. And so if you have more of this kind of built up, that's kind of the route you go.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it is like you walk around, like, you're given this opportunity to walk around like an area and kind of almost interview or talk to everybody around you, and they're all give you their own perspectives. And so you're getting these different like, either contradicting perspectives or just like all these different types of like views on things. And then at the end, you kind of have to make a decision based off of what you've put together. It's like almost deductive reasoning of like how you're going to move forward with it. And so it really does play into like, it makes for really good replayability and just for fun engagement within the story itself, rather than just going from like story to fight to story to fight. You have this like little segments of like interaction.
Okay. Yeah, and depending on which route you go, there are different, like, I think campaign areas that you would fight in different scenarios. I will say that, I think I've talked about this in my videos, some of the decision making seemed a little unnecessary or not as rewarding as I would have liked, because it just seemed like little consequence of what decision you made, it would just turn out all right in the end. And because there were some heavy topics, like heavy decisions, like, do I kill off this person? Do I abandon this person? Like there are some like high stakes, like things you have to decide on, but then it works out whatever one you decide to go with. So again, I think we talked about this in our previous episode. So I'm really hoping that if they do some sort of sequel or spiritual successor, they'll kind of tweak this formula a little bit, build upon more of the combat, because the combat I thought was amazing. but fix a little bit of how the decision making was kind of integrated in the game.
Exactly. I'm hoping for a second iteration of this, kind of like how they did with Octopath Traveler too. So just build upon it.
Yeah, refine the formula. If you've already got kind of a winning idea, just like polish it up, put out the second one.
Yeah. Doesn't need too much. It just a little bit. Emily, how about you?
So I want to talk about a few games that employ the RTS version of a strategy game. And I think it's a really cool kind of unique concept rather than relying on the classic turn-based system. It's a bit more involved with their real-time strategy mechanics. And I think the one that I've maybe played the most, I've dabbled in a couple of them. For example, Lost Dimension on the PS Vita. That I thought was kind of a cool take to the formula, and also integrating some sort of kind of detection of who the spies or the kind of your enemies are within your party. So that was kind of a cool twist on the genre. And I also really loved 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim that played this as well, and how that kind of alternated between the 2D storytelling that they have that's kind of like a visual novel or almost like a point and click adventure with the RTL systems.
If you call it a visual novel, people you call that a visual novel, people get very mad at you. I've discovered.
I know, novel, but I also said
it's like that works for
click.
me. That works for me. But yeah, anyway.
There's
sorry,
not decisions you make for like a point and click adventure. So I think it's like a visual novel.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're not gathering
it's a hybrid.
Like material to do things with in different areas.
We're making decisions.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
But yeah, the combat style I thought was really fun. A little bit on the easy side if you play on normal, so I had to kind of crank up in some cases the difficulty level, but it was really cool, and I love sci-fi stuff, so it's really cool to have those type of battles going on. And they made it so that the enemy waves were pretty varied for each different campaign, and your different units that you have, if you kind of varied and kind of do their maximize the points values you get depending on which units you release into the field. It was fun. Did you guys get to play either of those?
Yeah, I have played 13 Sentinels. The most that I played Lost Dimension, I think I needed to grab some footage, so I just did a battle or so to get a little bit of footage for something. I don't even remember what it was now. But yeah, it's one that I would like to go back to. I think I prefer to play it on the PS2, but I only have it on the Vita, or PS3. I'm sorry, PS3.
It's all right.
That's where I would prefer to play it, but
it's better on there. I think it works well on the Vita, and if you like handhelds, it's a great option. But the loading screens, and they do have I think a bug where some of the music cuts off like mid battle, which is irritating.
But 13 Sentinels, I loved. Well, I will say I didn't personally care for the combat in that game, just because I'm not a real time strategy kind of person in general. For me, I enjoyed the story so much that unfortunately the combat came across as here's this thing you need to do so that you can get back to the thing you really like.
Yeah.
So I had it on easy. I didn't struggle with it. I put it on easy and just breeze through it. It was fine. But yeah, as a piece of science fiction storytelling, it's just one of my all-time favorite plots. It's just so cool. It's such a confusing. It seems like it would be so confusing if you just try to explain the story to somebody. You can't really explain it. But it's told so well that it makes sense in the
presentation
as you're
beautiful.
playing it. Yeah, and it's a gorgeous looking game. The characters are really cool. The actors do a really good job. It's just all around. I loved it.
Yeah. 13 Sentinels. I also played that. I'm a fan of RTS games from when I was younger, playing Western ones like Command and Conquer and Age of Empires and stuff like that. But yeah, I didn't mind the battle system in this one. I think it was little breaks here and there, but I also agree though, Branden, with how good the story was and how much I wanted to see what was going to happen next. I just kept trying to fly through these battles to kind of get to the next storyline.
I honestly think that if it had been, I know they couldn't do it with the way they told the story. But if the battles had been integrated into the story instead of being a separate where your progress was gated off, it might have helped with the pacing. And it would have maybe made the battles not feel as much like a chore because it's it's just part of the game. Whereas it's hey, you're locked off from continuing the story. Go beat 4 battles or whatever. It's okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, I did stumble on that too because I would tend to kind of group all the RTS playing parts all together, just to kind of, because the story was so good, you just wanted to keep going
Exactly.
and find out what happens.
Right,
But yeah, I think maybe making that more of instead of kind of choose which one to do, like integrate that a little bit better for the pacing sake.
Yeah. Like I think.
But small, very small gripe in what is
a wonderful,
wonderful game.
So Branden, do you have any other modern RPGs that have strategy or tactics?
I've started dabbling in some of the Nipponichi games, Disgaea for one, and then Phantom Brave is the other one. And Disgaea, I started playing on the PS2, and it's real hard. This is one that did not change my thinking on a game too hard sort of situation. It is very hard. I think that I might like to give it a shot. Didn't they do like a complete version on like the Switch or something?
Yes, that's how I played it. It was more digestible on the Switch, I think.
That's what I'm thinking. I figured that would be the case. So I might like to give it a shot because I do like what I've played. Like, it's funny. I like that it's not taking itself so super seriously, because it seems like every strategy game has to be like so dire and dour and serious about, political machinations of everything. It's like, no, this is just a demon who's like wants to get everybody to listen to him, and like that's great. That's fine. I want to experience that. But yeah, like, being able to throw exploding penguins at bad guys and stuff, like it's great. It's just so hard. It's
quirky, but I agree. It's a little too difficult. I've only done the first one. I have a few others that I've just been kind of holding off. Like, do I want to immerse myself in this and get frustrated again?
I've got a bunch of them that I've picked up for really cheap. Like, they're not expensive games right now.
No.
So,
well, for some editions there are. I think if you try to get some of the Switch complete editions, I would say 5 or 4. It's a little bit pricey if you want the ESRB copies. I think they did a reprint, but those kind of went fast. I'm not sure what the state of it right now.
Are those would like an Asian English be an option there? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but there's a lot. The PAL versions I think are pretty widely available.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
If you don't mind the center text.
Oh my god! Well, I do the custom spines anyway.
That's true.
So
that is true.
Fine.
I'm gonna admit I've never played any of them.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't either until 2 months ago. So it's not shocking. They're interesting and they're worth looking at, I would say.
They're very different, I would say, in the genre.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, if you ever want, you're welcome to borrow one just to see if you like it. But it's whatever. Probably the Switch version is how I'm gonna want to do it. But that aside, the other Nipponichi game that I'm playing through right now is Phantom Brave, Bermuda Triangle, something or other.
It's a great name.
It's another one that's like very quirky, does not take itself super seriously. Like, the idea behind this one, and this is like the thing that excites me the most about it, is it's so different in how it just presents itself. Like, you control this like 13-year-old girl. That's like the main character. Mm-hmm. And her power is she can confine spirits within everyday objects. So you'll be out on the field and you'll be in a meadow with a bunch of bushes and rocks and whatever. And she can confine spirits in these objects around the battlefield. And the object that you choose to confine the spirit in will affect its stats. So like confining them in a rock will give them higher defense. Confining them in a bush or whatever gives them higher magic for some reason. I don't know. But like you can see that there's different, like how the stats are affected by how you choose, like the objects you choose.
Yeah.
So, you need to strategically not just throw all of your troops at everything. You kind of have to pace yourself. And because you're not going to have access to every object on the battlefield right away, you've got to move. Like, you can have access to the objects around you. Plus, your characters, when you summon them, they only have, I think, like 5 turns before they vanish, and then you can't summon them again for the whole battle. So you have to strategically place your characters on the battlefield and make sure you get the job done before you run out of objects or run out of time. Which sounds stressful, but it really hasn't been so far. It's the closest thing I've experienced to like a cozy strategy game.
Cozy.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great for just like, especially on the Switch. I'm playing it on the NIS Classics Volume 1, I think. The Switch version. It's great to just pick up, play a battle or two, and put down. You don't have to sit there for hours on end. You can just pick it up, play a little bit, put it down, pick it up later. It's great in bite-sized chunks like that. The battles themselves don't take 3 hours. They're like 10 minutes and you're out.
That's nice.
Yeah, this was originally on the PSP, right?
It was originally on the PS2.
PS2,
and then it got ported to the PSP.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
And yeah, it's great. There's a new one coming out. That's kind of ostensibly what I'm going to PAX for, to help support the launch of Phantom Brave: The Lost Hero, which is the sequel. So I'm kind of trying to brush up on the history of it before we get there. But it's a lot of fun. Like, I think I probably would have enjoyed this if I'd played it back when it came out. But like I said, at the time I was like, strategy, not going to touch it. Not for me. So
yeah. I had that on the PS2.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I do. I think I'm pretty sure I still have it. Games. Who knows what I don't remember. I don't remember if it's on my shelf. Hopefully I didn't lose that along the way. But yeah, it was a really fun game. I think there were some parts of the PS2 version I think were a little bit like difficult to get around, but I think ultimately it was a fun game though. Yeah, it's a goodie.
Well, cool. So I guess to continue this conversation about modern takes on the strategy RPG subgenre, there are a few games that have also integrated into this that we love, and ones that we would love to see franchises, I think, expand upon further in the future. For ones that we've talked about Trails extensively on this podcast already, but they've used a lot of strategy implements in their turn-based combat system, which I find really fascinating. And I really love how like a lot of the time delay stuff is another kind of take on the strategy RPG subgenre and kind of placement of different skills and kind of power boosts that I think Trails does. So are there any other kind of modern RPG or JRPG franchises you guys would love to see a strategy RPG made of? Either some sort of twist on the genre that we've been talking about recently, or some of the classic kind of turn-based stuff, kind of going back.
Has there been a tactical Dragon Quest game?
Dragon Quest? I don't believe so.
I think the slime ones, right? What's it called?
Rocket Slime?
Oh.
There's something with the slimes. It's something that you could download on the eShop. I'm totally forgetting the name.
It's like a mystery dungeon
tactic
style.
Well, there's that too.
Like
This
the
one, I think,
Pokemon
was
one?
more of a general, like,
Tactical.
turn-based tactical with the slime enemies. I'm totally blanking on the name though. Look it up.
I think that there's a lot of opportunity there to like have a really
to
cool
expand upon that too.
Yeah, to have a really cool tactical sort of game built out of those characters.
Like playing chess with them. It'd be fun.
Right, exactly. Like whether it falls like or follows the story of any of the particular games or just uses the iconography of it, that seems like it would be a no-brainer. And that's why I'm wondering, like, if all they've done is a downloadable 3DS game or something, like that seems
I think
strange.
it was in Japan, like more of a substantial game.
Oh, okay. But
okay.
On the 3DS, it's just a digital, I'm pretty sure, for us.
Okay.
Something with the slime, like Rocket. It's not Rocket Slime. It's
because Rocket Slime had a retail release.
Yes, it wasn't that one. It was something else. I should look it up when maybe you guys are further talking about them.
If anyone knows what it is, feel free to drop it in the comments
please.
or send us an email.
Yes, please.
Let us know.
Yeah, that seems like a good one.
They've done so many other spin-offs.
Yeah.
Like they have their monster series, that's like Pokemon. And
the Hero
they
series.
have the Hero series.
Their Musou.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Builder series.
Their Minecraft spin-off.
Yeah.
Exactly. So many.
And online
They've done
MMO
everything.
like style, like
Right.
online. So
Yeah,
like
Golden Age of JRPGs, they should do a strategy one now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
that
not
makes
shy.
sense.
They're not shy about testing the waters of new genres, so like, or subgenres. So like I feel like that would be a good pick. Yeah.
What about you?
Totally.
You know, honestly, I was thinking about it and then I remembered that there was actually a version of this, like Suikoden, but there is a Suikoden Tactics.
There is, yeah.
There is, yeah.
So that's not a good idea. Well, it's a good idea to do another one.
It was a great idea. Yeah,
it was a great idea.
Exactly.
Do another one. Yeah.
Do another
Let's
one,
release
or just
another game finally.
Yeah.
When they
do anything for that matter.
remakes that are supposed to come
Release
out.
the HD remasters.
Oh,
Do it now.
Seriously,
Yes.
come on. Where is it? It's been too long. We've been waiting. I mean, honestly, I think from a JRPG series right now, I'd like to see them do kind of pull in some Breath of Fire, kind of like that. I think it would be fun to go into like have like, you know, units that would go into like dragon mode or something like that, or
Sure,
things
yeah.
like that. So like you can tactically like have, I think it would be a fun way to kind of like spin off the series that's been dead for a while. And since tactics is so in right now, but I guess like I think that would be a contentious one because everyone's been waiting for Breath of Fire. So I think if they were to come through with a tactics,
They would need to do a
Yeah.
traditional
One.
release
I think so.
first and then have it as a secondary thing. You know, it's interesting the idea of a Dragon or a Breath of Fire tactical game. I feel like in a lot of ways, Dragon Quarter was like a step in that direction.
yeah,
Just with the way the combat plays out in Dragon Quarter, it is much closer to a tactical RPG than any of the previous games were, certainly. And like just in general, it's pretty close.
yeah,
So like that seems like a natural evolution of that series if they were to pick it up again.
yeah. It was like a tactics meets what's that genre of keep restarting.
Roguelike.
Roguelike, yeah. That's so
Mhm.
like it was like the beginning of roguelike games, but like they would force you to restart with nothing and it was take too long to get to it. So like it was just unwieldy,
Gosh.
and
Yeah.
hence why
I did not get far in that game. I love it conceptually.
yeah, it's a
Like,
great
I'm like,
idea.
what a cool idea that I will never play.
It's just roguelite and RPG. There's just so much work to get to back to where you were that it's exhausting.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
not like a platformer that you can just rush through. It's a process. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, I guess my pick is one that I'm kind of surprised they haven't done one yet because they have so many spin-offs of different subgenres and other games. But mine would be Kingdom Hearts and also have updated
Oh.
Final Fantasy characters in it. I think
Yeah.
that could be fun, and Disney characters. I don't know if I would want to do, like, I think doing the traditional turn-based tactical game could be fun, but maybe something like a twist on it that's like maybe employs some real-time strategy or something like that could be fun, or a time delay like Trails.
Mhm.
But I think there's a lot of franchises we could choose that's like in the backs of our shelves.
Oh
That would
yeah,
be perfect examples. Like we did talk about the Xeno series or
yeah,
a few others like Ease and all those.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like you said. I think Dali, you just said that it's kind of a little bit of a renaissance for the
tactics.
subgenre right now,
is.
and
Yeah,
so I guess if you're like me, there's never been a better time to like start dabbling because they're more accessible now than they've ever
Yes.
been from a playability standpoint, not
Mhm.
just from a purchasability standpoint. Like they make sure that you're not going to get stuck and
too
lose
frustrated.
hours of progress. And yeah, they understand that there's a lot of content that is vying for our attention. And so they've learned a lot of lessons.
A lot more
So
quality
the
of life
games,
features.
yeah, the games that I've played since I've started dabbling in the genre have been accessible and very good so far from what I've seen. So
yeah. And
Yeah,
I think
it'd
like
be cool to see new innovations too, because we've
Mhm.
seen so many other twists on this genre. See what else would be the next step.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the traditional turn-based and action have gotten a lot more attention just in general.
Mhm.
So maybe if more people start playing tactical RPGs, we'll start to see more innovation in that space too, you know.
yeah, like, and it's interesting. Like a lot of like even the older games that we think of like started to take more tactical, like Wild Arms. You know, for instance, like
Mhm.
it had the octagonal or I forgot exactly how they called it, but it was kind
It
of
was like
like
6 or 8 like
Hexagonal?
hexagonal. It was a
or
hexagonal,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
which was very tactical, and then like Resonance of Fate as well. So like, there's a lot of really cool like, you know, ways that people have like integrated these like really interesting like tactical
Yeah.
styles, and excited to see where
Especially I
else
think
we
in the
go.
Western RPG kind of
Yeah,
area too, on the like indie scene. I think I've seen quite a few.
yeah, where they have like
A
was
little bit
that
more of like a game board, you know? And even like the card-based stuff, I would argue that's very tactical too.
yeah, like it's
For
very
some
much
games.
tactical. I know that was that there's a what's that one game, Metal Slug Tactics,
Mm-hmm.
that's coming. That's not, is that out yet?
It
I don't
is
think
so.
it is out. Okay, yeah,
Not yet. I don't think so.
okay. But that one looked, like incredible too. If you're just trying to get into tactics, you've got your choice.
So many options, honestly.
So, yeah. And I don't want to
All the
let
ones we talked about,
and more and
but-
more.
and more.
So are there any other, I don't know, series or games, individual games that we want to touch on before we wrap up? We're coming close to time, but we've got a little bit of time here. Anything else?
I guess we could, in the vein of like getting yourself into the genre, I think one game that is not really spoken about much these days is Advanced Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, which they recently, I think Intelligent was the developed this
Intelligent system.
Intelligent Systems, yes.
The Fire Emblem people. So
Yeah. And the nice thing about it is that like it's not too complex in terms of just like the min maxing or anything that you need to do. It's kind of just getting into the tactical battle system itself. So it's a good way to start. It doesn't have like too big of a storyline or anything like that, but it is very fun. It's very cartoony. It's over the top a little bit. It's got 2 games in one set up right here. So, and it doesn't get as much love because it kind of just sat on the back burner of Nintendo's. Like they just didn't want to release it for the longest time.
well, there were certain
yeah.
circumstances
So,
why that was.
Global
Bad timing.
yeah, there were global issues happening that
But
Nintendo
the thing is,
wasn't
this happened
comfortable.
back in the day too,
Yeah,
Did it?
for 9/11.
Folks, if you're going to put out a game about war, you're going to have to there's going to be a war going on. There's always a war going on. Like, what
There
window
is.
are you expecting to find? I'm going to
Yeah.
sneak this in here between these two. There's
Yeah.
always going to be a war. Like, I don't know that.
From a PR standpoint, I can understand it though,
I mean, I understand
it.
especially
from
ones
that
that get as much
perspective.
media attention, because not
I
all
under-
wars get a lot of media attention.
That's true.
but like I agree with you, Brandon. Like at the end of the day, like war is constantly happening. I mean,
Right.
I get it from a PR perspective. You don't want to like release this in the heat of the moment, so maybe having like a small delay. But I think it was delayed like almost a year.
A year.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
which I think is a
I thought
little
it was too long as
egregious.
well.
Yeah, like from a perspective of like it's
I'm just like, what were they waiting for? Were they waiting for the war to end? Because it didn't.
no.
They eventually just put the game out.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I guess we're not talking about the war as much or something. Like, I don't know. It all feels, I understand it's a PR thing, but like, it feels to
Yeah.
me like the scummiest kind of PR thing where it's like, as long as people aren't, we don't
I
want
think-
people to associate this game
Yeah.
about modern war with modern
Modern war.
wars that are happening. I mean,
I think what
That's-
happened, it just missed that time window that they anticipated, and so they didn't want to push back or move anything else around, and so they
Yeah.
just put it on the back burner and then kind of let it die.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see Activision delaying Call of Duty for anybody. So like,
no.
uh,
Call of Duty.
Nintendo is a different type of company.
it's true. It is true. Nintendo is very much PR heavy.
Justice for this game, though. Like, I think more should pick it up. I need to pick it up myself. I've been waiting, and
Yeah.
probably too long I've been waiting, but I need to pick it up soon.
It's a fun game, and the great thing about it is that it has like a really good like online multiplayer that if you ever want to play with
That's fun.
friends or anything like that. Like I remember I used to play the DS games in college with friends around, and so like it was just a fun like in between class type of like scrimmages that you would do.
I didn't know that it was online. That's cool.
Yeah, there are a few other ones like that. I think Wargroove has
Wargroove,
online-
yeah.
well, the second one now has it. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun, and I think some Fire Emblem games, they used to have some campaigns you could do online
Mhm.
for a little bit. Not like recent games, but
Yeah,
some of the past ones.
or the fun of the DS where you just had to be within distance of like a wireless connection
Yeah,
between
the
each of the
local
systems.
ones.
Yeah, that was always my
And some
favorite
of them
thing.
you don't need just one copy of the game. I miss those days.
I think Advanced Wars was like that.
Oh,
I
it
think
was?
there was like only one person actually had to have the cartridge, which was pretty awesome.
That's cool. Yeah.
And then you could trash talk in person.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's the best part.
So
It's
much
like playing Battleship. I don't know. Have you guys played that back in the day?
I have not played that in
No? Oh, many days. Okay.
many
I
years.
was going to say, if you
I
never
have
played,
played
it, I was
it.
like, I have to
I have
question you.
played it. I feel like everyone should have played it at some point. But yes,
Why didn't we talk
I-
about Battleship? It's the epitome. It's the classic strategy
you know
role
what?
playing
is.
game.
That'll need its own episode.
That's my roots, actually.
Justice for Battleship. I feel like Rihanna did that series dirty. That's not.
Oh my
I guess
god.
it's not. I guess
Oh,
it's not her
gosh.
fault, but
It's not her
I-
fault.
I
but
for-
no.
she did sign
but
up for it.
She did agree to do it.
I forgot about that movie.
Well,
didn't even
rightly
watch it.
so. No, I never saw it either, but I
Gosh.
assumed that it was bad, and I don't think anybody in the comments is going to tell me that I'm wrong.
I if anyone thinks he's wrong, please post in the comment.
Put me on blast. I fully welcome you to put me on blast if I'm wrong about the Battleship movie. I'm sure it's terrible, but maybe it's good.
Maybe your next homework assignment is to watch it and then tell us how bad it is.
Oh, I was really good actually in school at not doing homework and BSing my way through. So I will,
All
yeah,
right.
100%. I'll do it.
Well, anyway, I think we had a great discussion today, and we want to leave you guys with a question. So the question of the day, and that is, what is your favorite strategy RPG of either ones we've mentioned here today or ones we haven't mentioned? We'll love to hear your guys' take on this subgenre.
Yes, please let us know, because our experiences are limited, and part of the reason that we're out here doing stuff is to
learn more,
find out stuff that we haven't played.
Exactly.
So let us know.
Yes. Well, anyway, to wrap up today's episode, we'll go around and say where you can find us. So, Branden, where can we find you?
I'm on YouTube at Just the Gems, and I'm on all of the social media platforms at Branden Johnson, BrandenJohnson. So look me up.
How about you, Dala?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Dalla998, DALLAH998.
And you can find me, Emily, at Orbology on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and other places. And I'm not going to spell it because it's a mouthful.
You're just going to have to find out and figure out, and it's going to be...
You'll have to figure out how do you spell this? And not spell it like most people do.
Chances are, yeah, give it a shot. You'll probably figure it out. You'll probably get it.
Yeah. Sound it out. You should get it.
Just say it real slow and you'll get it.
Yes. Well, anyway, this was a fun episode. And until next time, bye, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.